Welcome back to Limited Supply, the podcast where we get deep into the tactical and strategic side of e-commerce, digital marketing, and building consumer brands. I'm your host, Nick Sharma. I've spent the last 9 years building, scaling, and investing in brands. And through this show and my weekly newsletter at nick.co/email, I'm here to share everything I've learned. The wins, the losses, the experiments, the tactics, and the insights, all so you can unlock your next $100,000 in revenue. Today's episode is a good one, but before we dive in, let me tell you about our chosen sponsor for this week's episode. All year long, everyone has been talking about measurement and incrementality, specifically making sure that your customer acquisition channels are actually driving incremental customers. This year, everyone was looking for a new channel that has scale and drives actual impact. And at Sharma Brands, we test everything for clients. One that actually works, and I'm excited to partner with for limited supply, is AppLovin. Starting October 1st, AppLovin will be onboarding new advertisers who will be able to reach over 1 billion daily active users globally, with over 150 million of those in the US alone. Think about everybody who plays Wordscapes or Candy Crush, for example. AppLovin integrates your ads into their game experience where it feels natural. To stay in the loop about product features, creative best practices, and how other advertisers are using the platform, go to nick.co/applovin. That's nik.co/applovin. All right, so for today's episode, the opening of a new season, we're going to actually do a listener mailbag to open it up. And the reason is because there were so many questions from last season's end listener mailbag that we didn't get through all of them. And a lot of these were actually very relevant and great questions. So again, all these questions are derived from our limited supply Slack community. So if you're not already in there, suggest you get in there. You go to nick.co/slack, nik.co/slack. There's about 5,500 people in there that are talking on a monthly basis. All things Amazon, 3PL, DTC, Facebook ads, attribution, measurement, retail launches, where to find freelancers, everything that you could ever imagine gets talked about in there. And if you don't know where to start or don't know where to get an answer to something, you can message Shin, who's our community manager and is running the community day to day, and he'll make sure you're in the right channel. All right, so without further ado, I've got a handful of questions here that I want to get through. And so let's get started. So the first one comes from Chris. Chris asks, is there a suggestion on how a brand can navigate the transition from primarily direct-to-consumer to rapidly expanding in retail through paid and owned channels? Well, Chris, a couple thoughts here. So I'm just going to ramble, and hopefully there's a good answer in here or for anybody who's listening. So first off is you want to focus on creating content that travels well. Now, what I mean by creating content that travels well is you want content that has that gets a lot of shares or gets copied or screenshotted or a link in a group chat. You want to mainly focus your organic content on this, and your paid should just expand on that. Meaning, once you figure out what type of messaging angles are working, or I remember when Poppy launched in retail, they did a ton of TikTok and creator content around the creators or the founder even going into the store, picking up the product, trying it, talking about it, explaining it, and those were some of their best, always evergreen kind of viral TikTok videos that they did on organic. And then for their paid, they would just run dollars behind that. So if you can especially figure out an organic content strategy that works and travels well, meaning it gets a lot of engagement, gets shares, lots of comments, people are excited by it, then for promoting that, you should just really put money behind that. Especially if that call to action is already traveling or focused on getting people to retail. When I launched Hint Sunscreen in Target about 8 years ago now, the budget was first run by the brand marketing team, and it was essentially just taking these nice animations and putting the logos of Target on top of all these animations and running them toward using paid social, Facebook and Instagram and et cetera, to basically just tell people, hey, Hint Sunscreen is now available and it's in Target. And the thing that we learned was no one gives a shit. No one cares to scroll through an ad or watch a 6-second video animation that says that your product's now available in Target. And that's even worse than a normal paid social ad because you can't really buy it right there. It's just telling you it's available somewhere else. So it's really like an extremely passive billboard that you would be driving by on the highway. And What we did instead was we shifted toward a strategy where we focused on basically influencers and bloggers. So think the reward style or the like to know it type of bloggers, mommy bloggers, etc. And publishers like The Skim, BuzzFeed, Refinery29, some podcasts, etc. And we basically had them create content that then we would push with dollars behind it. So it came off as a third-party validation with our own targeting behind it. That was a very effective strategy. But essentially, you want to do everything you can to make it so that other people are telling people about the product and where it's available versus just your own ads and commercials saying that, hey, we sell the best sunscreen and it's available here now, because that doesn't really make anybody want to do anything or want to go buy. Next recommendation here is to do everything you can with your email and your SMS list. So if you can segment people out based on where they live, based on the type of product they buy, based on how many times they've bought, but really, if you can just focus on like isolating geographical clusters to different stores, then when you launch in a new chain in that area, you can send these people to go buy. 21 Siege, which sold to Diageo, did an exceptional job of this. Anytime there would be a new retail launch, or there was a time where we had to really push sell-through in certain regions, we could isolate the segment we wanted to go after, or that city, or those few zip codes, and then just create an offer or a blast and focus on those people directly. Another one you can try is cashback or couponing programs like Aisle, or you can build your own version of it. I know that some brands have built their own versions of this. So they create the program, they advertise it. You send in your receipt by text or by email. You log that information, you make sure you can see where they bought, you can see what they bought, you can see what else they bought to try to create personas, especially with with AI and with these LLMs, you can actually start doing a lot more with that and segmenting better. And then, of course, once you validate that they bought your product, if there's some sort of a cashback offer, you can send them cash back via Venmo, you can send them a Visa gift card, you can send them an Amazon gift card, whatever it may be. But you want to make sure that you're basically driving sell-through of your minimum required units sold per store per week. If not, then you risk the entire brand being taken off the shelf and being deprioritized in the next time the planogram is designed. The planogram is think of it as the wireframe for the shelves at the stores. I believe it's done usually once a year for the whole year, and sometimes stores do it on a quarterly basis or a half-year basis, but for the most part, I think they're annual. But again, if you can't drive sell-through and you've got 6 flavors of a product, if one of them is not driving sell-through or 2 of them aren't, but 4 of them or 5 of them are killing it, then you risk the whole brand going down. Last couple points. One is your landing pages, your website product pages, your TV ads, your YouTube ads. They should all include your retail placements and where people can find you locally. Any sort of view-through based channels, whether it's AppLovin, whether it's TV, whether it's a print ad in New York Times or a magazine page out of Vogue, they should all aggressively display the retail partners that you're available in. And you should be running some sort of measurement. So whether it's MMM or it's incrementality experiments to understand what the media spend is doing across different doors, you want to make sure you're running that so you can correlate what is the actual incremental effect of a media channel on your retail doors, specifically in different geos. Last point here is in your ad comments, especially if you sell a product that's a high price point, or a lot of times if you sell food, beverage, cosmetics, beauty, you have to buy it or bundle them in higher quantities or higher AOVs. So a lot of times people will comment on your ads and basically say that they want to just try it or if they want to sample it for cheaper, but they don't want to buy the $50, $70 pack online. To which you can reply and say that you can go buy it on Instacart, in a retail store that you're in, on GoPuff, which usually most brands are on if you're in that retail chain or in the retail channel as well. But all of these will solve their problem. It'll give insights to those who are going to comment that next and generate some more awareness of your retail presence. Okay, next question is from Paul. Paul asks, where are you finding the best marketing talent these days? LinkedIn feels overwhelming with low quality applicants and Upwork has turned into a mess. Are there more specific platforms or communities? Yes. So LinkedIn, I've always thought is kind of a cop out for hiring. You're basically, you know, you're just finding people who are constantly searching for jobs. And the best people are not searching for jobs because the jobs find them. So, the short answer is like, you just got to work harder and find these people. The best way to do it is you can spend an hour or two yourself on LinkedIn to try to aggressively search, message, and pester people. You can cold email them. But if you want some communities or shortcuts, here's a few. So the first one is Marketer Hire. This is a platform I invested in years ago. It's amazing for finding freelance talent. It's harder to get into Marketer Hire as a marketer than it is to get into Harvard as a student. And because of that, they've got a long wait list, but you can go to marketerhire.com/NIK to skip to the front of their wait list and just let them know you came from me. They'll hook you up and put you on the red carpet. Another one is called The Starters. Jay Dolwani, who was formerly the CMO of Wink, started The Starters a couple years ago. And it's also an amazing network of talent. I've recommended them to a ton of startups, and they've only ever had good things to say. If you need good offshore talent, I can't recommend Oceans Talent enough. That's where my guy Ramiz is from, who I've talked about a lot. And we have another probably 7-8 people from Sri Lanka through Oceans as well. If you're looking for senior hires within the US, I would recommend using a recruiter. There's a few, you can email me if you need an intro to one, but depending on what you're looking for, whether it's creative talent, whether it's, more strategic or tactical or analytical talent, or whether it's more kind of like worker bee talent, like more routine things, there's different recruiters I've used for each. And then, of course, the last thing you can do is identify a list of target candidates you want to hire and try to figure out work backwards to see how you can get warm intros to them, or you can get somebody to text them that there's an opportunity that may be relevant for them. That's usually what I found to be the fastest way is like, for example, somebody reached out to me with a job description this past week. I said, hey, there's actually somebody I have in mind for this. And he just said, can you shoot them a text and see if they're down to connect about it? That is the best way to get it, because if a text comes from a warm intro or somebody that they already know, the response time is going to be much faster than trying to cold email somebody and just get a yes or no. The only last thing I'll really say here is just make sure that you really need to hire a full-time team or a full-time employee. Sometimes you're a better fit using an agency that can grow with you and handle everything. For example, at Sharma Brands, we have a ton of clients who don't have an internal e-commerce team. We handle their website, their acquisition, their promotions and sales, their emails, their new product launches, et cetera. So sometimes you just need a good agency that can help kind of be your backbone or get things done for you, especially if your product already has good product market fit. All right, next question. So Nick, not me, but another Nick, asks, as a new brand running Meta ads, I see a lot of good top of funnel metrics, click-through rate, cost per click, and add to cart rate, but lower funnel metrics from add to cart to checkout initiated and checkout initiated to checkout complete. Those numbers are very poor. Well, so for context, if you're unaware, what Nick is actually talking about is the dashboard view inside Meta Ads Manager. So you can see, how many impressions there are. Then you can see your click-through rate. Then you can see your cost per click. You can see how many people landed on view content, what your cost per view content is, your add to cart, your cost per add to cart, all that kind of stuff. You can see all those. So the idea is that you can basically look at this table and very quickly just understand, if 500 people landed on the site and 350 people added to cart, but 40 people checked out, that the discrepancy is there. So that's kind of where, I don't know what those exact numbers are for Nick, but Nick is basically saying he's got great CTR, CPC, and add to cart, but then add to cart to checkout is very low. So here's a couple thoughts. One is, Nick, you likely have a product that is pretty compelling or an angle that is getting people interested, which is why you've got a positive click-through rate and great CPC metrics. But my guess is that your price point raises eyebrows and people want more validation before making the purchase. So this is where your mid-funnel efforts need to be much stronger. Now, mid-funnel efforts are not necessarily, your top of funnel is what you're already doing. It's driving traffic. Your bottom of funnel is really just focusing on, or at least in this journey, I consider bottom of funnel really focused on driving the conversion. But the middle of funnel has to get somebody to align mentally and say, yes, I do want to buy this product. Then it's up to the bottom of funnel to make sure that this product is purchased through that funnel or that website versus maybe an Amazon or a competitor or something like that. So a couple things. One is you need to focus on answering what is the solve that somebody gets from this, and why should somebody care about this product and how this product is going to benefit them. The second is what shows up when people search for the brand or this product on Google, on TikTok, on Reddit, on Twitter. Is there enough social proof on these platforms? Does your on-site product page or landing page, does that have enough social proof? Are there unboxing videos? Are there testimonial quotes? Are there quotes from publishers? Are there quotes from influencers? Are there, screenshots from TikTok comments? Whatever it may be, you need to have enough social proof that also looks like it was not just bought and paid for. You also may have an egregious shipping cost that no one feels comfortable paying for. So remember, Amazon, fortunately or unfortunately, has trained the whole world that e-commerce is a commodity, and so is free shipping. So you may just have to increase your product's price by a few dollars and lower your shipping cost, or just kill your shipping cost altogether. Another thought is, how aggressively are you collecting emails? Because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to retarget these engaged site visitors through email and SMS, whether you have their email or you use something like Instant and get their emails through a third party. But I would recommend using Alia for your pop-up. If you're under a 5 or 6% email collection rate, that should be closer to 10 to 12%. And honestly, the last thought I have is, there's a story I always think about that I heard about a decade ago when Victoria's Secret was running programmatic ads and had a weird situation like this, where they had crazy high CTR, really low CPM, really low CPC. And, once people got to the site, no one was buying. And essentially what they figured out was that it wasn't that, the media agency that was running it was like, these numbers are amazing, the metrics are there, we're hitting all our KPIs, and that's all they were responsible for. The website team was like, hold on, wait a second, no one's buying any of this. This traffic is garbage. And it turns out that the agency was actually just running Victoria's Secret women's ads to men. And that's why they were getting all these clicks and the traffic was engaged, but nobody was buying. So it could be something similar to that as well. I'm not saying that you're doing that, but it could be something similar to that where you're just missing one variable, working properly. And that is what's causing this to essentially not work the way that it should. You know me, I only like to share things that are tactical, practical, and actually work. So that's why I'm excited to talk about AppLovin today. You've likely heard of AppLovin, but let me tell you why it's an exciting ads platform too. Starting October 1st, AppLovin will be onboarding new advertisers and soft launching their self-service platform. That means that by October 1st, you'll be able to reach over 1 billion daily active users daily. This season on Limited Supply, I interviewed Miranda, who scaled in $1,000 a day ad spend to $70,000 a day in AppLovin ad spend. The channel actually has real scale. To stay in the loop about creative best practices, new product features, and see how other advertisers are leveraging the platform to prepare for October 1st, go to nick.co/applovin. That's nik.co/applovin. All right, next question's from Jim. Jim says, how do you think about ad spend and marketing budget that goes to testing new channels and tactics? How much of the budget do you put towards this? Is it worth the short-term loss for potential long-term gain and diversification away from Facebook and Instagram? So it's a great question. So as a rule of thumb, I try to stick to test budgets around $10K per test for media-related tests. If you're running a test with a creative partner, it's usually something different. It might depend. There might be an agency where their floor for a test is $25K. It might be that it's $5. But for media related stuff, whether you're testing a new channel, a new tactic on an existing channel, like advertorials using Facebook, I would still focus on that 10 to 15, 20K range budget. Obviously, if you're spending, $1 billion a year in advertising, your test budget's going to be more like $50,000 to $100,000. Because you need a lot more statistical significance to show that a platform can, work for itself. But all that said, 10K is a good kind of rule of thumb, but it really depends on what your AOV is, how many purchases a platform needs to properly optimize itself, and how hard of a sell or how long your sales cycle is for your product. You may also need to ensure that you have the right ways to track this new channel's performance. So for example, again, if it's AppLovin or truckside billboards, you want to make sure you're tracking directly attributed sales, but also tracking incremental sales driven in retail on marketplaces like an Amazon or Etsy or eBay, or B2B channels as a result of these new channels, new media channels pushing for customer acquisition. It is absolutely worth testing new channels, but I would recommend doing it in a systematic way with a proper channel expansion plan. Don't just test whatever's thrown at you by sales reps. In fact, one thing to note too, most of the time these Meta and Pinterest sales reps that reach out, and I think possibly Reddit, they're not real employees. They're just contracted people overseas who are sending emails and trying to get calls locked in. And those calls are also with people who are not actually working at Meta or Pinterest. Google and TikTok and Twitter and Snap and mainly those that I just mentioned. Those reps are usually from the companies directly. But again, you get kind of a lower quality rep when they're just reaching out to you. Unless you've got real volume of spend, especially volume of spend showing quarter over quarter growth, you're not going to get a legitimate rep. So most of these people who reach out are just salespeople that are trying to get you to spend your first, $100,000 on the platform. That said, I would not focus on just testing whatever's thrown at you. I see this happen a lot where people get excited that somebody thinks they're ready to test TV or podcasts or out of home or, sponsor a music festival with an experiential activation. And because it's not done in a cohesive way or a systematic way, you're just sort of blowing dollars testing new channels. And I'm not a fan of it. There's also enough channels you can test in a way that is direct response first before you sort of switch over to channels that are more view through focused or brand focused. So, anything like Meta, Google, TikTok, YouTube, Snap, affiliate, TV, podcasts. These are all directly attributable channels. And then when you move to other channels, whether it's retail marketing like an Instacart, out of home, events, things of that nature, those are a lot more view-through based. And so it just requires you to have better measurement and understanding of what's actually working. Okay, next question comes from Rahul. Rahul says, there's a difference between apparel and a lot of other D2C brands because a lot of the tactics don't apply to apparel. How would you approach apparel ads? Great question, Rahul. First off, you're totally right. Apparel is essentially focused on selling an entire catalog. You're not just focused on selling a specific product, although there are companies like Everlane or an Outdoor Voices or honestly any apparel company, they've usually got their flagship products. So they may have a set of ads that focus on their top selling products or top selling SKUs or top selling collections. But what you really want to do is either focus on you need to actually focus on like what you're selling. So for example, are you selling the softest cashmere in the market? Are you selling the lifestyle associated with wearing Zegna or Loro Piana? Are you selling the innovative and proprietary material that you created that allows for instant cooling while working out? You need to focus on your focal point because apparel is all around building around that. It's really all focused on brand. Now, once you've got the brand out there, it's a lot easier to focus on collections or individual products. But a lot of that is sort of done by more of the targeted advertising, whereas the brand marketing and brand advertising should focus on what is the selling point or the focal point of the brand. Once you've got something to focus on, then you can ensure that all the other pieces are in order. So, a high converting website with the best UX and UI practices, product pages with thorough product information about materials, who it's for, why they should wear them, where the material is sourced from, why it's better than the same type of garment from another brand. All these things need to be on the product pages. And if they're not, then you are going to get people leaving or, actually a good point here is if you don't have all this information on the product page, you better be somebody who's like a Louis Vuitton or a Tom Ford that has crazy brand awareness or a Kate Spade or something like that. Or you need to have it where when somebody Googles your product, like, if they Google Outdoor Voices workout dress or whatever it may be, there's a ton of social proof that's doing the selling for you. If you don't have either of those two things, if you're not a Kate Spade, and if you don't have social proof like Halara, for example, then your product pages need to be full of information, because you're just risking losing these people and buying the same product from another brand. And yes, of course, 99% of the stuff you sell is probably already sold by somebody else, even though you think it's not. Last big one here is catalog ads. So these are the most successful form of advertising for apparel brands and fashion houses. I remember in 2017 when Bonobos and Marine Layer and Canada Goose, when these guys were all advertising on Meta, the reason that they did so well was because they figured out the code to crack catalog ads. So with catalog ads, you essentially take your catalog feed, which is automatically generated by your site tool like a Shopify. You can upload it into a tool like Marpipe, because they help you organize and segment your catalog so that you only advertise products that are actually generating profit, not just what Facebook thinks is going to sell quickly and may not generate a lot of profit, or may actually generate revenue at a loss. And they'll help you run promotions on top with custom creative. So if you're running a Memorial Day sale, you can just easily modify your catalog ads creative to reflect Memorial Day. If your product has 600 5-star reviews, you can make a rule that if a product has over 400 5-star reviews, you display that count on the actual catalog creative itself. But regardless, when you're running catalog ads, you want to also make sure that your PDPs are like landing pages, because this is the first and only place people will go on your website when they click a catalog ad. Catalog ads also do extremely well outside of Facebook and Instagram, whether it's on a GoPuff, whether it's on the Snapchat, whether it's on TikTok. And now actually catalog ads also work well on TV. Last question comes from Jono. Jono says, what are a few effective ways to get press and or awards to increase your brand value and social status? To be honest, Jono, there are not a lot of super creative ways here. I can just tell you the few that come to mind. So one is like you figure out how to get your own press. You create your own hype. You create a story. You create a reason for somebody to go talk about the brand. Now, whether that is some crazy collab you do, a crazy stunt you pull off, a new product you launch with an influencer, whatever it may be, but something that is relevant to talk about and you put out, that's one way to do it. Second way is you hire a PR agency or a PR consultant. There's a lot of former employees of PR agencies who are now consultants and will help you get your launch press, or sort of like just help you get in more press outlets, whether that's listicles and buying guides or gift guides, or it's a quote in an article where what you're doing is complementary to what they're talking about. So for example, if they're talking about how the EPA's, if there's a New York Times article on how the EPA is starting to fail because they have no real standards for the quality of water, which we know they would never write about, then Jolie might have a quote that goes in there. The founder of Jolie may get asked, or their consultant might pitch this editor that, hey, we should get a quote from the founder of Jolie, because what they do is focus on cleaning people's shower water, because the EPA doesn't care about the water that goes in your skin. The third way to do it is you can literally just pay for it. There are sites that exist where you can go and basically say, hey, I want an article in these 7 publications. It might be Vogue UK. It might be, the Times of India. It might be The Wirecutter. It might be GQ Magazine. It might be Vogue. Whatever it may be, you can literally just check all the ones you want. It gives you a price on the right. It might be anywhere from $500 to $5,000 for an article or for a mention or whatever it may be. And you put your credit card in, and, this underground world of PR and content starts working for you. The thing is, though, is most people know that these press hits are bought for or paid for or slid in through the back door. So there's really not a lot of credibility that comes from it. I think it's great when you're launching a brand to just get something. So when people Google the brand, articles come up. And I think the gift guides or the listicles are probably the best things to get into, because they're really focused on from an affiliate standpoint. But for the most part, you can essentially focus on just putting out content and getting other people to talk about the brand in a positive way. All right, that concludes today's episode. I hope today's questions and answers were helpful. Let's see, we went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe 6 full questions. So good episode today. I'm going to probably turn this into a newsletter summary and send it out so that the remaining 100,000 people can check it out. And if you've got any other questions, join the Slack. It's nick.co/Slack. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise on CPG, retail, and e-commerce. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.